Hi, welcome to my video on rational functions, and this video is on the polynomial, which is a linear on top and a quadratic on the bottom. So when you multiply cx by ex, you get x squared. So this is a linear divided by quadratic in terms of, we haven't done one like this before, and it's plus k, which is going to be the horizontal asymptote. A, B, C, D, E, F, and K belongs to the real numbers. Okay, let's look at one example. F of x equals x over x plus 2 times x minus 2. So that's f of x is the y, x times over x plus 2x minus 2. Again, you can see that the degree of this is 1, so that's a linear. The degree of this, if you expand it out, would be x squared, which is a quadratic. So we have, on the end, we have a 0. So let's look at the vertical asymptote. So the vertical asymptote is x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. You're not allowed to have 0 in the bottom, so x equals negative 2 will be an asymptote, and x equals 2 will be an asymptote. So x equals negative 2, there's the vertical asymptote down through there, which is x equals negative 2, and x equals 2 is the other asymptote. So there's two asymptotes. There's two different factors. And we look at the horizontal asymptote. So what happens here as x goes to infinity or negative infinity, x goes to infinity or negative infinity, the infinity, let's take a million. This is a million, and on the bottom we got a million times a million. So the millions cancel out, so it's still 1 over a million. So as x goes to infinity, this fraction is going to 0. So that means that y is going to 0, so the horizontal asymptote is 0. So y is 0 is the horizontal asymptote, which is right here. So this is y equals 0. Now, let's look at the y-intercept. The y-intercept is when you let x equal 0. So take this equation and put a 0 in, so y equals 0 over 0 plus 2, 0 minus 2, and that gives us 0 over negative 4, which is 0. So that means that when x is 0, y is 0. So that means that the graph passes through the origin. And let's look at the x-intercept also. The x-intercept is when you let y equal 0. So put 0 right here in this equation. So we got 0 equals x over x plus 2, x minus 2. And we put it over 1, cross multiply 0 times this polynomial gives me 0. 1 times x is x. So when y is 0, x is 0, and that's what we had before. And you say, well, why do that? Well, it could have another y-intercept, another x-intercept besides this, or could have another y-intercept. So by checking, letting x equals 0 and letting y equals 0, we check out the different x-intercepts and y-intercepts. Now, we also have to check, so we know that this graph is either going to go up like this, or it's going to go down like this, or it's going to go up here and down here. But there's also something happening in the middle because it passes through the origin. So let's do a table of values. And the table of values, let's look at, this is negative 2, so let's look at negative 3. And we know what negative 2 is going to give. So let's look at negative 2 is undefined. But let's look at 0 gives us 0, that's right here. And let's look at over here, which is a 1. And let's look at on the other side, which is a 3. Because we know that 2 is undefined, negative 2 is undefined. So what are we going to get for negative 3? So the equation is right here. So we have negative 3 over, and we have negative 3 plus 2 times negative 3 minus 2. And that gives us negative 3 over, and negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1 times negative 5. So that gives us a negative 3 over 5. Let's look at negative 1 in this equation. Put a negative 1 in, we get a negative 1. The bottom is negative 1 plus 2 and negative 1 minus 2. So the numerator is negative 1, and that's negative 1 plus 2, that's 1, times negative 1, negative 2 is negative 3. So that's negative 1 over negative 3, which is a 1/3. And 0, 0, which is going through the origin. Let's check with 1. So negative 3, and we have 1 plus 2, and we have 1 minus 2. So that's negative 3. 1 plus 2 is 3 times 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So that's negative 3 over negative 3, which is, let's see, 1. We have, I'm just checking now to make sure. This is so easy to put a 1 in here, right? Oh, I put a negative, when I put 1 in, I don't know what I did there, why I put 3, that's 1, and that's a 1. So that's 1 over negative 1/3. I don't know why I put that 3 there, but that's a 1 going there, and that's a 1 right there. So that's negative 1/3. And we put 3 in. Let's put 3 in the place of x. 3 is going in the place of x, so it's 3 plus 2, 3 minus 2. So that's 3, 5 times 1. So that's 3/5. So let's plot these points and see, because that'll tell us how it's going to go. So negative 3, which is here, gives me negative 3/5. So let's say negative 3/5 is a little bit bigger than a half. So let's say it's right there. Negative 1 gives us a 1/3. And a 1/3 is, let's say right there, 0, 0. 1 gives us a negative 1/3. So 1 gives us a negative 1/3. Let's take it right there. And 3 gives us 3/5. So 3 gives us 3/5. So 3/5 is almost a little bit more than a half. So how does this graph go? Well, as it goes to infinity, the y goes to 0. So as this is like this. So I did this point here at 3 to pick up. At 3 I get this point, so I know it's going to go towards that vertical asymptote, like that. And in between I have it here, here, and here. So it's going like this. So it goes up along here, and over through, and down. There it is. And over here, as it goes to negative infinity, it's going to go to 0. So as it goes out here, it goes down here. And as it goes towards a negative 2, it goes to positive infinity. So, oh, look at this. Negative 3 gives me negative 3/5. So my mistake. So that's negative 3/5. I just noticed I didn't plot the point right. I plotted the point at 3/5. I didn't notice the negative. So really, as it goes to negative infinity, it goes to 0. as x moves to negative infinity, y goes to 0. So this is the graph. My mistake, I plotted that point. That point I put in the wrong position. It should have been here. So there's the graph. Sorry for that mistake. I make those metal errors. And as I said on a quiz, instead of getting 100%, I make these errors. And now we have another one, f of x, and again we have a linear over quadratic, and this time we have a plus 2. So the equation is x equals x minus 1 all over x plus 3, x minus 2, add on 2. And vertical asymptote is when your denominator is 0, so x plus 3 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. X is negative 3, or x is 2. So if you put a negative 3 right here, you will get a 0. 0 times this number is 0. 0 on the bottom is a no-no. So we have vertical asymptotes at a negative 3, and at 2. X equals negative 3, x equals 2. And the graph will not go to these two vertical asymptotes. And what is the horizontal asymptote? So the horizontal asymptote, I'll go with this equation here is the same, only we have a y. So as x goes to infinity, again we have infinity here, infinity times infinity. So we cancel out, so I get infinity on the bottom. So this fraction goes to 0, y goes to 2. So y equals 2 is the horizontal asymptote. Y is 2, 1, 2, 3. Horizontal asymptote is right here, y equals 2. Now, let's look at the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is when you let x equal 0 in your equation. So you got y equals 0 minus 1 over 0 plus 3, 0 minus 2. So that equals negative 1 over negative 6. So that's, I also forgot to do the plus 2. So plus 2 onto that. So plus 2. So that's 1 6. So that's 2 and 1 6. Again, I almost made that error. Going to plus 2. So 2 and 1 6. So when x is 0, y is 2 and 1 6. So let's take that point to be right there. So that's the y-intercept. And let's look at the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is when y is 0. So we're going to make y 0, and we're going to write down the rest of the equation and solve it for x. So y is 0, and we're going to solve it for x. So I have an equation with fractions. So the LCD is x plus 3, x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply this equation through by this denominator. So 0 times this polynomial will give me a 0. And when you multiply this fraction by x plus 3, x minus 2, you get an x minus 1. And then you get 2 times this denominator. So I multiplied by each part by x plus 3, x minus 2. There it is. Now I'll simplify this. So 0 equals x minus 1. So that's FOIL on this is x squared, outside negative 2x, inside plus 3, so that's a plus x, and last is negative 6, and that becomes, so I did the two brackets first, now I'm going to do the monomial, finish off the multiplication, so 2 times this trinomial will give me that, and when I simplify, I got a 2x squared plus 3x minus 13. And well, the factors of 13 and 2 give me a 3. 13 is 13 and 1 and 2. No, I can't get a 3. So I'll use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so b is 3, so that's negative 3 plus or minus. And b squared is 3 squared minus 4. A is 2. C is negative 13. All over 2 times A, 2 times 2. So that gives us negative 3. And if you take a calculator and work all that out, you get, that works out to be 113 all over 4. So 113, let's do an approximation. So that's, the square root of 113 is 10.6 divided by 4. And so that gives us, let's go up right here. And so that's negative 3 plus 10.6 over 4, or negative 3 minus 10.6 over 4. And that gives us 7.6 over 4, or negative 13.6 over 4. So that works out to be a 1.9, or negative 3.4. So this point here, again, we let y equal 0, so that's the x value of 1.9. That's an ordered pair. And the other one, y is 0, so the x is negative 3.4. So let's plot those 2 points as the y-intercept. So we have, we let y equal 0, these are the x-intercepts. I said the y-intercept is right here at, when x is 0, y is 2 and 1/6, that's the y, these are the x-intercept. So a negative, 1.9, so 1.90, so 1.9 is, 1.9 is right here, right? And a negative 3.40, negative 3.4 is right here, that's a negative 3, and almost a half, so there it is there. Keep track of those. So, now, where does the graph fit in? Well, we know it's cutting up here and here. So, how's it going? So, we have a y-intercept. So, let's see, we need some more points. Let's find some more points. Let's look at a negative 2 to see where this graph fits. So we have this one and this one inside of here. So let's look at a negative 2. So we take a negative 2 and plug in to this equation right here. So we have negative 2 minus 1 over negative 2 plus 3 and negative 2 minus 2. And so that gives us negative 3, and that's a 1 times negative 4. So that gives us negative 3 over negative 4, so that gives us a 3/4. But we also got to remember that we forgot, again, I forgot the plus 2. The plus 2. I forgot the plus 2 there. So that's 2 3/4. So 2 3/4. So there's, this point is x is negative 2 and y is 2 3/4. So there's the negative 2 and there's the 2 3/4 right there. So it cuts through here, here. So that means it's coming down like this. because it runs along by the asymptote. So it leaves here, goes up to here, and runs up. So as it gets closer to the -3 on the right side is going to positive infinity. As it gets close to the 2 on the going to 2 on the left side is going to negative infinity. And so we have right here, so it has to go towards the asymptote. So it cuts through here. So we need another point. So we need a 3. So let's look at, we can look at this point and look at the 3. Let's see what happens. Let's pick a 3 here on this side to see where it's going to. So if we put a 3 in, we get 3 minus 1. This time I won't forget putting a 3 in. This time I won't forget I got a +2. And so that's 2 all over 6 times 1 plus 2. So that's 2 over 6 is 1/3 plus 2. So that becomes 2 and 1/3. So when I have a 3, I have a 2 and 1/3. So that means it's roughly right there. So as it goes to infinity, y goes to 2. So it must be coming in like this, because this is the point. If it was here, it would be going this way. But this is the point it's going through, which is, the point is 3 and 2 and 1/3. And we have this point going to this. So it's going down here, so we need to do a -4. So let's plug in a -4 and see what happens. Because a -4, we have that intercept, but we don't know if it's going to go this way, or we don't know if it's going to go this way. So let's plug in a -4. So we got a -4 minus 1, and we have a -4 plus 3, and a -4 minus 2 plus 2. So that's a -5 over. This is a -1. This is -6 plus 2. So that's -5 over 6 plus 2. So that's -5 over 6 plus 12 over 6. So that's 7 over 6. So this point is -4, 7 over 6. And a -4, 7 over 6 is 1 and 1/6. So it's right here. So there's the -4. So it's right here. So it has to go like this down through here. As long as you don't make a mistake, and it's easy to make a mistake working this through, just take your time. And there's the graph of that one. So notice I picked up the horizontal asymptotes, the vertical asymptotes, and then I found other points, found its x-intercepts and y-intercepts. And by working on the -2, the 3, and the -4, it tells you where it's going. Okay, one more, and then this video will come to an end. So we have the equation f of x is a y, -x over x minus 1, x minus 5. And so let's look at the vertical asymptotes. The vertical asymptotes are when the binomials on the bottom equals 0. So x is 1, x is 5. So you put 1 in or 5 in, you get a 0 on the bottom, so they're vertical asymptotes. And the horizontal asymptotes, again, as you go to infinity, as x goes to infinity, then they cancel out. We get infinity left here, So 1 over infinity goes to infinity. This fraction goes to 0. And we have a 0 here. So the horizontal asymptote is 0. So let's draw the vertical asymptote x equals 1. So there it is there. The other asymptote is x equals 5. Okay. And now let's find out what the y-intercept is. So the y-intercept is when we let x equals 0. So there's the equation. So we got y equals negative 0 over 0 minus 1, 0 minus 5. And so that gives us 0 over, and it don't make any difference right now, as long as it's bottom. So that's negative 1 times negative 5 is 5, so 0 over 5 is 0. So again, the x-intercept is at the origin, 0, 0 right here. And we check what's the x-intercept is when you let y equals 0. So take the equation and put y equals 0. So 0 equals negative x, and x minus 1, x minus 5. Put over 1, cross multiply. 0 times this polynomial is 0. And 1 times negative x is negative x. So negative x is equal to 0, x is equal to 0. And again, we got y is 0, x is 0. So both x and y intercepts are at the origin 0, 0. Now, we have to, which way do, something happens in between here, and something happens on the sides. Let's go with a table of values. Let's go with a table of values and see what we're going to get. Here we go. So this is a 1. So let's check. We know what this one is. Let's check with a negative 1. X is negative 1. And we'll work that out. Let's work out each of these separately now. Negative 1. So we have the negative of a negative 1 all over negative 1 minus 1, negative 1 minus 5. And that gives us a positive 1. That's a negative 2, negative 6. So that's 1/12. Okay, now let's go. We know what 0, 0 is. 0, 0, 0 is going to go through here. So this 1 is an asymptote. So let's check with 2. Let's check with 2. Let's put 2 in. So we're putting 2 here. So that's negative 2. Putting 2 here. So it's 2 minus 1. Putting 2 here. So it's 2 minus 5. So that becomes negative 2. This is 1. And this is negative 3. So that's negative 2 over negative 3. So that's 2/3. Or 2/3, we can go 0.666 or 0.7. So we got a 2. Let's try a 3. Put a 3 in. So we put a 3 here. We get a negative 3. Put a 3 here, we get 3 minus 1. Put a 3 here, we get a 3 minus 5. So we get negative 3. 3 minus 1 is 2 times. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So that's negative 3 over negative 4, which is 3/4. And 3/4 is 0.75. Remember, this is 2/3 really is 0.6666, etc. What I call a 0.7. Now we try a 4. 4 is here. So put a 4 in, we get minus 4. We got to put a 4 in place of x, so that's negative 4. Put a 4 in, 4 minus 1, and we get 4 minus 5. So I get a negative 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. Negative 4 over negative 3 is 4 over 3, which is 1 1/3. As a decimal is 1.333, etc. And we know what 5 is as an asymptote, so let's try see what 6 is. See what 6 is. 6 is going to give us, we have a 6 over 6 minus 1, 6 minus 5. So that's a 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. So 6 over 5. 6 over 5 is 1 1/5, which is 1.2. 1/5 is 2/10, which is 0.2. So let's have a look. What we have. Let's look at the 6. The 6 is on this side here. A 6 is 1.2. So 6 is that a negative? Oh, I forgot to put, I was thinking about, this is a negative, negative. Yes, 6 is, when I put it in here, I put a 6 in, but I didn't make it negative. I made all the rest of them negative, but I made it near it, didn't I? It's a negative 6, so it's a negative 1.2. So a 6 is 1.2. Nope, not there. 1.2 is right here. I'm going to take a little whitener now just to take that away, because if I don't, it's going to confuse. It's so easy to make a mistake. Just got to be careful. Got to be careful. So there it is there. 6 is negative 1.2. There's 1 there. There's negative 1.2. Now let's see what, so that means the graph is going, the horizontal asymptote is y equals 0. They're right there. So there's y equals 0. So as it goes to infinity, y is going to 0. So it has to do this. So as x goes to infinity, y is approaching 0, passing to this point. So that means as it approaches 5 on the right side, it's going to go to negative infinity. Now let's plot these points in here. What is 4? 4 is 1 1/3. Right here. And what is 3? 0.8. 3 is right here. 0.8. Let's say 0.75 is 0.8 roughly. And 2, which is here, is 0.7. So that's 0.7 is right here. So it's down further, because this is 0.75, that's 1.3, down further. So it goes up, it's going this way. So that means it must go up along there. Now, will it bend and go down through here, or will it go up this way? So to fix that, I need to take this point here. I need to look at, I need to look at the point 1.5. 1.5. So there's a 1, that's a 2. I need to look at this point right here to see if it's going to be down here or up here. Now, 1.5. We put 1.5 in here, makes it negative 1.5. And we go 1.5 here, so 1.5 minus 1. Put a 1.5 here, we go 1.5 minus 5. And we have to work this out, so negative 1.5 over, so 1.5 minus 1 is decimal 5. We'll put this in brackets. And 1.5 minus 5 is negative 3.5. So you need a little calculator to do it quickly. when you multiply that out, you will get a negative 1.75. So that's negative 1.5 divided by negative 1.75 is a positive, and positive 0.86, or we could say it's 0.9. 0.9 is up here, so there's 1.5. 0.9 is higher, so that means it's bending and going up here to infinity. And on the other side, when we have 0, we got a negative 1 is 1/12. Now 1/12 is, there's a 1, so 1/12 is here. So that means it's going to go, it's like this, coming down through here, going along. And if it goes through 0, 0, and it's going to here, it can't go this way because it's got to go to that 1/12 there. Now, what happens is that it went through the 0, 0, went through the origin, and it has to go look over here. As it goes to, x goes to infinity, y is going to go to 0. So as x goes to negative infinity, it goes to 0. So that means it went up through here, and it went up, passed through this point. So when it gets past this over here somewhere, it starts to dip down. And it dips down and goes along by like this. So there it is. Again, I made it up a little bit different. So some people say, well, you can't cut through your horizontal asymptote. Yes, you can. But this is just one of those exceptions. You got to be careful. Again, because it passed. Now, if I did a half would be down here. So if you did a half into this equation, so let's do a half, or we do, we do a half. So if I do a half, which is here, I should get a value of y down here. So I got 1/2, and I got, sorry, a half, so that's a negative, got to be careful. There's a half, x is a half, so there's a negative a half. So we got a half minus 1, and we got a half minus 5. This time I got some fractions. So I got a negative a half, and a half minus 1 is a negative a half, and a half minus 5 is a negative 4.5, which is a negative 9 over 2. So I got a negative a half, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's a negative 9 over 4. So that's a negative a half times negative 4 over 9. And the 2's cancel. So I get negative and negative is a positive. So I get to be, negative times a negative. Oh, I wrote down a negative. That's a positive. So that's a positive. So that's a 2 and the 4 goes 2, so it's a negative 2 over 9. Negative times a negative is a positive. So a negative divided by a positive is a negative number. So there's a negative 2/9. So negative 2/9 is, again, just approximate. It's up here, and it's coming down through. So again, this is just an estimate, but you got to be careful. Got to be careful. So that's the graph of that one. Again, vertical asymptotes, horizontal asymptotes, and this one passes through the origin, but as it goes up here, it has to bend back down, because as x goes to negative infinity, y goes to 0. Okay, that brings us to the end of the video. Again, if you like my video, a few minor errors there, but I always make those, and my students corrects me, but that's okay. That means they're thinking and on the ball, or knowing what they're doing. Click on the like button, click on the subscribe button if you wish. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained, just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you, and I apologize for those few little errors. Bye-bye.